So one of the common things that we get questions about all the time is people coming in with their Achilles hurting, right? So one of the big problems, Achilles tendinopathy is what we call it. So there's been changes in the tendon that it's more reactive and often over a longer phase. And it gets people really nervous. Like, am I going to be able to keep running? Is my career over, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that we always will tell people to do is continue running on it. What people get here all the time, especially as runners, is like, oh, just stop running. Just don't do that anymore. Stop doing it. And that takes the pain away, but that doesn't get at the root of the problem. And so it's not about totally removing load. It's about modifying that load and building up our body's capacity to handle that better. And so two of the things that are typically bothersome to tendons in this condition are load and velocity. And so that repeated hitting on the pavement at high speeds will often make that a little bit more reactive. And so slowing down your runs and removing some of that speed work for the short term can be helpful. And there are many other benefits of slowing down, which if you follow us and if you've heard us talk about 80-20, you want to check out some of our other videos on that. So anyway, back to the load and velocity. So what we do is we still want to load it, but instead of that repeated impact that we're getting with those heavy footfalls is try to focus on having lighter footfalls and then doing a heavy, slow resistance strength training program so that we're lifting heavier loads, right? Because that's what the tendon needs to adapt, but we're doing it slowly so we don't get the reactivity that the velocity brings in. And that load isn't as problematic because it's not that impact, right? That quick loading. And so having a solid strength training routine where we're really focusing on that tendon. And one of the mistakes people make is only doing the straight leg calf raises. So we also want to do bent knee calf raises typically as part of the protocol. That's what we find in the literature is that's getting the whole tendon and it's getting all of the muscles that compose the calf. That's really important and part of that routine. The other thing that we always have people avoid is stretching. And you'll see all the time like, oh man, like I'll crank on it and it feels good for a couple seconds and then it starts bothering me again. What we find is that stretching tends to light it up more because you're adding more stress to an already overstressed tissue. So it feels good in the short term, but in the long term, it typically aggravates people. And so trading stretching for strength training is really the most beneficial switch you can make in terms of getting this better. And so those are our common tips. So those are some things to look at. You want to have someone who's helping you build a program that's including all those elements. And then also kind of looking at what is the volume of your running and modifying that and making a plan to keep you running, but then progress you back up to where you were and even beyond, right? So you can hit those PRs, so you can rock it out in the track, in the mountains, on the field, wherever you are.